Alex, I'll be blunt, could you quit the company?
Suddenly asked to resign by Bob. I was taken aback.
What?
To be clear, you're just an eyesore. If you don't quit, I might just have to end the business dealings with my dad's company. How about that?
That's because of your mistake, Bob.
At my comment, Bob's face turned grim and he started yelling threateningly.
Shut up, I didn't make any mistakes. It's all your fault. If you don't quit soon, I'll have my dad fire you.
Bob was hired just because he was the son of a client company's president. He had always been a source of frustration with his selfish behavior, but this incident was especially a headache. After much consideration, I decided it wasn't wise to oppose Bob and resolved to quit right there and then. When I got home, I confessed to my wife, Dorothy, that I was quitting my job, hanging my head in shame at my own helplessness. I'm sorry, I got fired today. Expecting a scolding, I timidly looked up at my wife's face, but to my surprise, she smiled broadly and embraced me comfortingly. That's great. Thank you for quitting. Surprised by her unexpected words, I tilted my head in confusion. My name is Alex. I am a 28-year-old employee at a construction company. My father is a well-known architect who has worked on everything from station buildings and government offices to custom homes. Growing up watching my father, I've always had a strong admiration for architecture and aspired to do the same type of work. Ever since I was little, I loved seeing the buildings my father worked on, and would spend hours poring over the many architecture books, blueprints, and photo albums at his office, dreaming of the day I could do similar work. My father was pleased with my interest and often took me to art museums on weekends to teach me about architectural styles in a playful way. I chose a high school with an architectural program and went on to attend one of the most prestigious architecture schools in the US, where I graduated successfully. During my student years, whenever I had time, I'd visit cafes, commercial facilities, and museums to study their structures and materials, compiling reports that made my peers call me an architecture nerd, but I enjoyed those times immensely. Over those 6 years from high school to college graduation, I amassed a vast collection of reports that still occupy a cherished place on my bookshelf. After graduating from university, I joined a local small construction company, where I work to this day. I chose a smaller construction company over a major one because I believed it would allow me to visit various construction sites and engage in a variety of tasks. This plan worked out well, and now I handle multiple construction projects, juggling several sites each day. Though I thought I had made a strong foundation of architectural knowledge during my studies, practical experience is something I am still gaining. It's been 6 years since I joined the company, but there's still so much to learn from the experienced colleagues on site. I have been consistently studying architecture alongside my job. Someday, I want to create a building that I have designed myself. That's what keeps me chasing this dream. I may be a dull architecture nerd, but I have someone who supports me through it all. My wife, Dorothy. Dorothy was a classmate from high school, beautiful and cheerful, and the most popular girl in the class. Of course, like many others, I was one of the many who admired her, but my determination set me apart. Right after meeting her at the start of high school, I mustered all my courage and confessed my feelings. Dorothy, I like you. Will you go out with me? She was surprised, with her face turning red, but she accepted my confession.
Really? We haven't known each other long, Alex, but why me?
It's hard to explain why, but before I knew it, I had fallen hopelessly in love with you. Dorothy, you're kind to everyone and always so cheerful. Thank you. Please, will you go out with me? I don't think many people have fallen for me as hard as you have, if I'm good enough for you. I'll never forget Dorothy's bashful smile in that moment. Even after we started dating, I was determined not to let any other guy have her. We walked to and from school together as much as possible, And even when we were in different classes, I'd find time during breaks to see her, continually showering her with affection. My friend joked about my actions, saying, "Stop being her stalker," but I was that desperate to keep Dorothy close. Also, the vast amount of reports I managed to compile during my student years was thanks to Dorothy's kindness, as she patiently accompanied me on architectural site visits, which I called dates. Dorothy didn't go to college, but said she had something she wanted to do, and started working. We continued our relationship through my university years, and 3 years ago, we happily got married. Now, she wakes up early every morning to prepare delicious, nutritious lunches for me as I work on construction sites. Dorothy is an excellent cook, practically professional. My colleagues are envious of the lovingly prepared lunches she makes, and I proudly eat them every day at noon. Once or twice a month, I forget my precious lunch, and she brings it to the site for me. One day, as I was enjoying both a happy home life and a successful career, the son of the president of a major construction company joined our company. Bob, 25 years old, was hired due to strong recommendation by President Taylor, his father and president of a client company. Bob had just become a licensed architect and needed to accumulate practical experience. With the title of a young certified architect, everyone at the company welcomed him warmly. "This is Bob, who will be joining the design department from today. Everyone, please take good care of him." "Hello, I'm Bob. I look forward to working with you starting today." Saying that, Bob gave a casual greeting. At first, he seemed humble, but once the new employee training started, his true nature gradually became apparent. As I was a somewhat close in age, I was assigned to be his trainer, but guiding him proved to be more challenging than expected. One day, I had asked Bob to prepare some design documents for a construction site, but after discovering several calculation errors, I approached him about it. "Bob, can we talk?" "Yes, what is it?" "I was looking at the documents you prepared yesterday, and there are some mistakes in the numbers here." "Is that so?" "Yes, so I need you to correct them." "Why do I have to do that? Couldn't you just fix them when you noticed? Are you trying to harass me?" He would listen quietly when taught, but when corrected or pointed out, he became emotional and argumentative, which was troublesome. "No, that's wrong. It's good for you to know what you got wrong to prevent the same mistakes in the future." I don't need that kind of thing. You know I'm the boss's son, right? Minor chores like that are for the lower ranks to handle, not me." I was frustrated by Bob's dismissive attitude and the way he scoffed at my advice. It turned out that Bob, he never missed an opportunity to remind everyone he was the son of a client CEO, was an incredibly troublesome person. Despite this, my colleagues and I tried to be considerate and teach him about the job, but Bob's behavior worsened day by day, making increasingly negative remarks that soured the atmosphere. "Bob, about the on-site training coming up." What's this about going to a site? No way. Why do I have to go there?" "Why? Because you need to learn the practical aspects of the field work as part of the training." "I don't need to. After all, I'm a future president. Besides, if you keep nagging, I might just tell my dad and get you fired. How about that?" "Fired? But on-site training is really important."
You're so persistent. Are you sure you want me to complain to my dad?
That's
Field work is something you guys do, right? I'm saying it's not my job.
I can count how many times I nearly lost my patience with Bob. He despises field work and looks down on and mocks his colleagues and senior employees. However, because he was the son of a major client, everyone treated him like a hot potato, holding back what they really wanted to say, creating a stifling atmosphere in the company. Amid the unsettling atmosphere created by Bob's behavior, the company decided to establish a project team for a particular construction venture. The job involved a major project, constructing a commercial building as part of the redevelopment of the area in front of the station. we would demolish the old building and construct a new one with 3 underground floors and 15 above ground. To facilitate access from the underground passages, extensive underground construction would also be necessary. While I was fully committed to the project team, the atmosphere turned gloomy when Bob, as requested by the president, was also included in the team. Right from the start, Bob was eager about this major project, declaring he would lead the design process. "I will handle the design, so please manage the other miscellaneous tasks among yourselves." Isn't it tough to handle the design alone? It's a breeze for me. I'm a certified architect. Oh, and let me make it clear from the start, no interference needed. Make sure you all understand that. But this is a major building design, you know. Enough, you're being annoying. If I need help, I'll ask for it, so until then, just do your own work quietly. Incredibly, he started insisting on handling the design of such a large building construction by himself. While a renowned architect had set the basic design following the building owner's preferences, and foundational blueprints were available, managing the layout and all design aspects alone was an exceedingly difficult task. Still concerned, I persisted. "The workload is going to be immense, Bob. I'm just worried about you." "I don't need that kind of concern. It's none of your business." Initially, Bob was enthusiastic about meeting with the client's company, but as days passed, he started turning pale. The building was to have a streamlined design with many custom requests from the client, such as a bold atrium with a domed ceiling at the entrance. To meet these demands, a design combining various materials was necessary, and moreover, it had to be equipped with detailed earthquake resistance measures, including base isolation and damping systems. The structural calculations required had reached a level of utmost complexity. Bob was cornered and spent all day at his desk, clutching his head, seemingly at his wits' end. However, because he had so adamantly insisted on working alone, others hesitated to offer help. Then came the day to present the finalized design plans to the building owner. Worried about any flaws in Bob's documents, I approached him. "Bob, has anyone done a final check on the design plans?" "What? Are you trying to find fault with my design?" "It's not about finding fault, but shouldn't there be a check?" "No need, just listen to my presentation. Have you managed the construction schedule and material procurement properly?" "Of course." Bob disregarded my advice and even insinuated that I and other project members weren't doing our jobs. Without Bob sharing his design plans internally, it was impossible to ensure detailed scheduling and material procurement. How could he not realize this? Project members foresaw the need for significant revisions after today's presentation, and scheduled critical meetings with associated firms for later. Bob's selfish actions were causing trouble in many ways. Frustrated, I swallowed my words, unable to confront him. Representatives from the client's company, including President Johnson, were present. Our side included project members, the sales director Steve, and the executive managing director Paul. As the distinguished members gathered, Bob began his presentation with enthusiasm. "Thank you for gathering today. This building incorporates the latest technology, enabling a streamlined facade. We've used double-glazed windows to ensure design aesthetics while enhancing thermal insulation and energy efficiency." "That's amazing. It's exciting to think about this building being constructed." "I'm honored by your praise. Now, please look at the next document. Regarding the interior, we've realized your request for 5-story atrium with a domed ceiling by using large frames and beams for support. Here is." Bob's presentation impressed a client and other project members. However, I was the only one who paled upon reviewing Bob's design and documents. "Wait, these calculations are all wrong. This won't support the space for a 5-story atrium. Major revisions are needed." That concludes my presentation. Any questions? Realizing this was my only chance, I raised my hand. "What? Alex, what is it?" Bob asked, frowning suspiciously. Bob, about the structural calculations in the document you just explained for the interior. Yes, what about it? This calculation won't support the structural integrity for the atrium. It needs to be recalculated, and possibly some design changes are necessary. I apologized to the astonished client, whose eyes widened in surprise. This kind of mistake should have been checked internally. It's like airing our dirty laundry. I'm terribly sorry for this great inconvenience. Our internal checks were not sufficient. No worries, there's still plenty of time in the schedule. By the way, how much modification will be needed now? The beam is not strong enough given its current size, so we'll need a thicker one. This might slightly alter the dome's shape into an oval, or inevitably change its height. What are you talking about? Bob, sorry, just listen for a moment. I went over to Bob and explained the calculation errors in a low voice while pointing at the blueprint. Upon understanding the mistake, Bob's face turned red and he fell silent. I'm very sorry, but I will come back another day to explain the modifications. I'll rework the structural calculations to ensure minimal impact on the proposed design. Also, if you have any comments on the exterior or interior, I'd love to hear them. My explanation managed to smooth things over for a moment. Additionally, as if seizing the opportunity, I received plenty of new requests, which meant significant revisions were in order. After the meeting, the project team members were called in by Paul and Steve and got reprimanded. For the company, it was a major project, and it was unacceptable for errors to be revealed during the final presentation to the client. Bob was also there, maintaining a nonchalant demeanor, but as soon as we left the boardroom, he completely changed. Alex, what have you done? Huh? Don't make me look foolish in front of everyone. Are you harassing me? Are you jealous of me? There is no jealousy. That's why I asked if the preliminary checks were necessary. Shut up. If you were so concerned, you should have spoken up more. I was astounded by Bob's selfishness. I did mention it several times. You were the one who said it wasn't necessary. Luckily, we still have some leeway before construction starts. That's not the point. You always act so high and mighty. It's annoying. Well, there's nothing I can do about that. This is so annoying. You should just quit the company. Excuse me. I was momentarily stunned by the excessively unreasonable demand. As long as you're in this company, I'll suspend the dealings with my father's company. It's going to be trouble for the company because of you. That's harsh. You owe this company for hiring someone mediocre like you. Are you going to repay them like this? Isn't that a bit too tyrannical? You gonna say that? Think carefully about your next move. I'm not feeling well today, so I'm going home. Take care of the revisions. And don't bother coming in tomorrow unless you're ready to resign. Or else I really will stop the dealings. With that, Bob vented his anger and went home. I was completely exhausted. Afterward, while focusing on the revision work, I received concerned glances from my colleagues. If I stay here, Bob might actually end up stopping the dealings, and our small construction firm would be in jeopardy. I decided to quit my job after much deliberation in the back of my mind while I was deeply engrossed in revision work. The revision work was immense, but somehow I managed to complete it overnight. Then, early in the morning, I submitted my resignation to my boss, Bill. Bill, who had always treated me kindly, was shocked and concerned, but after I explained the situation, he supported my decision. Then, I said goodbye to the members of the project group, informing them that I was leaving the company. I'm resigning effective today. I'm sorry I won't be able to see the building completed. That's such a shame. Please let Bob know I've resigned. That was just a tantrum, wasn't it? There's no need to take it seriously and resign. Did you hear that? It was loud enough for the entire floor to hear. The executives might have had their ears plugged. They can't say anything to Bob. I see, but what if his dad really stops the business dealings with us? That's a concern for sure. Yeah, that's why I have to do this. Thanks for everything. I packed my meager belongings into a box, dragged my tired body out of the office, and headed home. Then, carrying a cardboard box, I returned home and told Dorothy that I had resigned. I thought she would be angry about my quitting my job on my own, but I was worried. Alex, it's been a while since you last came home in the morning. I'm sorry for making you worry. Actually, I quit my job today. I decided without telling you, and I'm really sorry about that. Why are you apologizing? What? Actually, quitting your job was the right move. Thank you for doing that. Contrary to my expectations, instead of being angry about me quitting my job, my wife thanked me with a beaming smile, and I was completely baffled. To my surprise, she then smiled sweetly and shared some news with me. A few days later, thanks to an acquaintance of my wife, I was taking an interview at a major construction company. It turned out that this acquaintance was Bob's father. After graduating high school, my wife had worked in a restaurant and obtained her nutritionist certification. 3 years ago, just after we got married, she started her own lunch stand business. She developed a variety of popular low-calorie, low-carb yet filling menus, which became a big hit, especially among office workers prone to unhealthy eating habits. The business's performance soared. Because my wife packed these signature menus for my lunch every day, my colleagues were always envious. After focusing on delivery and setting up shop in a prime downtown location, busy executives and CEOs who didn't even have time for lunch started placing orders, and that's how she met Bob's father. The day I quit, while having breakfast after an all-nighter, my wife filled me in on many things I hadn't known. Mr. Taylor has always spoken highly of you. He believed that with your talent, you should be working on bigger projects at a major company. Wait, Bob's dad knew about me. You don't realize how valued you are in the industry, from winning a top prize in a student architectural contest to expanding your company's client base. Mr. Taylor was impressed. That's nice to hear. So, it seems like they were hoping your son could grow as a licensed architect by your side, but it looks like things didn't quite work out. Training him was more challenging than any project I've ever handled. So, it's probably for the best. You shouldn't languish at your current company when you could be challenging yourself at a bigger one. Mr. Taylor is really keen on helping you find a new job. Really? Wow. Thus, I was granted an interview at a large construction firm through Mr. Taylor's referral. Though we had never met, Mr. Taylor apologized over the phone for his son's rudeness. It remains a mystery how such an impressive father could have such a clueless son. Alex, we've been expecting you. Thank you for having me today. This interview is just a formality. Your credentials are already well respected. Essentially, today is about introducing you to our company. Is that so? Yes, we'd really like to have you join us. Thank you very much. And just like that, my re-employment was smoothly secured. I stepped up to a much larger construction company and worked with even more enthusiasm than before. As a result, I am very happy to be involved in large-scale projects that were unimaginable at my previous company, such as designing government facilities, skyscrapers, and city planning. Originally, I had obtained my architect's license while still in school and had consistently won awards at the annual architecture competitions, making me a notable figure in the industry. Consequently, it seems that both my classmates and professors were shocked and worried that I might have lost my senses when I chose my previous company. Until Bob arrived, it had been a great place to work at my own pace. Since then, I have rapidly demonstrated my true capabilities, being promoted to the head of design and entrusted with one important task after another. Every one of my projects has been highly regarded by both the industry and the general public, and my name has become increasingly well known. Before I knew it, I had achieved my childhood dream of becoming an architect. All of this was thanks to my wife, Dorothy. Meanwhile, my former company suffered a major blow. The last project I worked on turned into a disaster. Afterward, Bob refused to admit his mistakes and pushed all the revision work onto other team members, claiming all the credit for himself. However, repeated critical errors came to light, leading to the client's outrage and the project being scrapped entirely. At the same time, frustrated with Bob's attitude, all the competent project members reportedly threw in the towel. They found it absurd to let Bob monopolize the results, so halfway through the project, they dumped everything on him and all moved to a rival company. Losing of its skilled designers, the company's performance plummeted. Initially, Bob seemed to be puffing himself up, thinking, "Now it's my show." However, as a newborn architect with no real experience in meticulous planning, he was bound to fail, along with the company's ineffectual executives, who couldn't advise him. Their performance rapidly deteriorated. The relationship with our clients had collapsed, and the company's financial state was now in danger. The president of my previous company, Mr. Thompson, desperate about the situation caused by Bob, appealed to President Taylor for help. As a result, Bob was forced to resign. President Taylor decided to assist in the recovery of his former company's performance by providing work and workforce as an apology for the trouble caused by his son. After being ousted, Bob was placed under his father's strict supervision and made to work vigorously. I heard rumors that Bob was seen working on construction sites, looking exhausted and getting scolded by his boss. I felt that I had truly witnessed that one's actions will eventually come back around to you. I continue to diligently work at my dream job in architecture, hoping that my sincere efforts will bring even better returns as I strive in my new role at a new company. You told me to push it until I drop, didn't you? Now because of you, my credibility is in shambles. The shouts of factory manager, Alex, echoed through the area. I told them from the start that the deadline was impossible to meet, but they insisted on going through with it anyway. I swallowed the words that were on the tip of my tongue and just listened silently to the conversation. "Didn't I tell you before? If we don't meet the deadline, you'd be responsible," he said. I think I remember him saying something like that. Alex's angry expression suddenly turned into a smile as he said, "You're fired as of today. We don't need old-timers who tarnish the company's reputation."
Fired? That's just ridiculous.
All decisions are mine to make. You caused this mess, so don't make excuses. To silence me, Alex slammed his fist on the desk with force. I was prepared to take responsibility, but being fired was completely unexpected. I begged for mercy, but there was no changing Alex's mind. Crushed by a sense of despair, I headed to bid farewell to my subordinates, unaware that yet another shocking event awaited me. My name is Tyler. I was hired mid-career at a well-known car manufacturing plant. Although I'm nearing retirement, I believe I'm as capable as the younger employees. My wife, Emily, is always concerned about me not overdoing it, but so far, my health has been fine. We were never blessed with children, but our relationship is strong. We are known as a loving couple in our neighborhood. Though we've been married for a good number of years, it hasn't been without its challenges. We've had countless disagreements over the years. When the company I worked for went bankrupt due to poor performance, it was a particularly anxious time. Reflecting on all the hardships we've overcome, I am truly grateful to have married Emily. Many of my peers complain about their wives, and hearing them makes me realize how fortunate I am. Currently, I hold the position of department head at work, though deep down I'm not satisfied. I earn more than enough, but being ambitious, I've always aspired for more. However, the company's policy requires a college degree for anyone to become a factory manager. Since my highest level of education is a high school diploma, I didn't meet the criteria. It's a frustrating rule, but there's nothing I can do about it. While my official title is department head, I am confident that I perform better than anyone else. In fact, I am often relied upon not just by my subordinates but by the factory manager as well. I handle scheduling and consultations on a daily basis, practically acting as if I were the factory manager myself. I have also earned the trust of factory managers from our client companies through my work. My life, both at home and work, has been fulfilling, and I had no significant complaints until now. This time, it has been decided that the current factory manager will retire upon reaching the mandatory retirement age. Consequently, a new factory manager will be appointed. His name is Alex. He is the son of the company president, and quite young. Although he graduated from a prestigious university, he lacked any substantial experience in manufacturing. His employment was clearly a case of nepotism. Possibly due to his graduation from a top university, Alex's pride is as high as Everest. He is an absolute egotist who looks down on everyone, including me, with utter disdain. Despite having no real-world experience as a professional, he refuses to listen to anyone else's opinions. People like you with a low education can't compare to someone like me from a top university. It was how he introduced himself at first. I was somewhat aware of the dangers of having an incompetent, prideful boss. But Alex's arrogance was beyond anything I could have imagined, making me wonder how such people even exist in this world. When a near retiree like you is just a department head, and a young guy like me is the factory manager, it really shows how important education is, he remarked when I greeted him. Alex only viewed the workers below him as mere pawns. Without proper consultations with others, he took on projects from major clients. You might think that in itself isn't a bad thing, but the problem was the deadlines. No matter how I calculated, even if we worked without days off, we couldn't meet them. Normally, we should undertake work with more leeway, but Alex hadn't considered any of that. Alex, this deadline is really unreasonable. There's no way we can meet it, I said. What? Are you criticizing the job I managed to get for us? Despite my advising Alex that it was utterly impossible, his displeasure was evident. Of course, I wasn't just nitpicking. Based on the daily production capacity of the machines and the inspection speed of the workers, all the data shows that it's impossible to meet the deadlines Alex has set. No matter how much I explained, Alex just wouldn't understand. Stop lining up excuses with this based on past data nonsense, he snapped. It's not like that, it's truly impossible, I insisted. This is just because you've all been slacking off. Act like you're robots, not humans, and work, he said dismissively. Facing Alex, who casually made outrageous demands, I felt a sense of despair. This was no longer about educational background, it was a matter of humanity. Despite my earnest attempts to persuade him, it all ended in vain. I had no choice but to do what was possible. I sought help from subcontractor factories and reluctantly asked my team to work overtime. I was filled with regret. The subcontractors and my team, knowing it was my request, willingly accepted. I was thankful for their generosity. Of course, I also tried my best to meet the deadline, working diligently. Feeling it unfair to ask my team to bear all the hardship, I stayed back and worked alone outside of working hours. Alex seemed indifferent even seeing this effort. Don't you dare miss the deadline I set, or you won't be forgiven, he said cheerily by my side as I worked silently. There was no notion of him helping out. Despite my repeated requests, he refused them all. Are you asking me, a graduate from a top university, to do menial machine work? He scoffed. Why is that considered menial? That's just prejudice, I argued. Don't get all red-faced just because I'm stating facts, he mocked. We really need more hands here, I explained. Stop relying on me, the factory manager, like that. It's pathetic for an old man near retirement to act this way. Alex said, laughing as he walked away. Dealing with him felt like a waste of energy. I gave up on getting angry or having expectations and focused solely on my work. I came home late into the night, often after the date had changed. I tried to maintain a smile so as not to worry my wife, Emily, but as one might expect from a spouse of many years. She could still sense the fatigue I couldn't completely hide from my expression.
Hey, you've been looking really busy lately, are you okay? She asked.
Just some unreasonable demands from the new factory manager. I'm okay, I assured her, though I seldom complained about work to Emily. I didn't want to worry her too much. However, seeing the fatigue I couldn't conceal, she couldn't help but care. We faced tough times before. I'll get through this with some grit, I said, mixing in a bit of bravado as I made a small fist pump. Emily looked unconvinced, but sighed and said, just don't overdo it. You're not young anymore. I understood the difference between doing one's best and overdoing it. Right now, I was definitely overdoing it. If I were merely doing my best, Emily wouldn't be this worried. Despite racking my brain, there was no sign that Alex would do anything about the deadline. In the midst of continuous grueling work, it was clear that my subordinates were accumulating fatigue. Noticing a clear drop in work efficiency, I decided to end the workday at noon. Pushing them any harder would inevitably lead to someone collapsing. It was just a matter of time. As expected, when I explained this to Alex, he exploded in anger. What? Working until you collapse is the basic duty of a field worker. There's no such rule, and I wished he wouldn't make such arbitrary statements.
We can't go on like this. We are not robots, I asserted.
No matter how much Alex yelled at me, I was determined to protect my team. I thought he wouldn't agree, but his response was unexpected. Well, even if we don't meet the deadline, it won't be my fault, he said, smirking as if he'd come up with a cunning plan. If we don't make it, it'll just be your responsibility to bear. Fine, I'll specially allow you to end work at noon, he conceded. Though his reasoning was unsatisfactory, my priority was to give my subordinates a break. I informed everyone that we would end the workday at noon and sent them home. No job is more important than health. After sending off my subordinates, I continued working alone. The fatigue had accumulated to a point where sleep alone wouldn't cure it. Emily, as always, was the one who witnessed my state up close. Trying to alleviate my exhaustion, she went out of her way for me. One day when I came home, she had prepared my favorite dishes and some alcohol, waiting for me. Seeing the lavish dinner table, I wondered if it was some sort of anniversary.
You've been really tired from work recently, haven't you? I thought I'd do something special for you, she said.
Emily, thank you. I managed to say that, moved by her thoughtfulness. Holding back tears, I reached for the food laid out on the table. Fried chicken, steak, Caesar salad, and creamy soup. Each dish was a favorite of mine. Have a good drink tonight, she urged. I don't usually drink much, but I figured tonight was an exception. I downed the whiskey Emily poured with gusto. Perhaps the alcohol loosened my tongue. I found myself unexpectedly venting about work, something I don't usually do. Most of my complaints were about Alex, the new factory manager. I spoke about the impossible deadlines he set, his high-handed speech, and his attitude. Driven by the alcohol, I let out all my grievances. Emily silently listened to my endless rant. When I finally paused, she asked, "What's his name?" "Alex, Alex Barker," I replied. "Alex Barker." Emily murmured, her expression thoughtful as she repeated the factory manager's name. I wondered what she was thinking, but decided to let it go, and took another drink. Grateful for my wife's care, I resolved anew to do my best at work. Yet, despite our best efforts, we couldn't meet Alex's deadline. The delivery was significantly delayed. We had done everything we could. If that wasn't enough, there was nothing more to be said, as both the employees and I had given our all. Still, even with that understanding, Alex was not satisfied. I was summoned by Alex and subjected to a barrage of abuse. "You told me to keep going until you collapsed, didn't you? Now because of you, my trustworthiness is plummeting." Despite me saying from the beginning that it was impossible, they went ahead anyway. I swallowed the words that almost slipped out and silently listened to Alex's rant. "Didn't I tell you before? If we don't meet the deadline, you'd be the one to take the responsibility," he said. I think I recall him saying something like that. From an angry expression, Alex suddenly switched to a smile and said, "You're fired as of today. We don't need old-timers who damage the company's reputation." Fired? That's ridiculous. All the decision-making power is mine. The root cause is your fault, so don't make excuses. To silence me, Alex forcefully slammed his desk. I was prepared to take responsibility, but being fired was beyond unexpected. I pleaded for mercy, but there was no changing Alex's mind. I should say goodbye to my subordinates before I leave. I packed up my belongings and reported to everyone at the site that I had been fired. To my surprise, the employees all showed relieved smiles. And unbelievably, they even said, "It's good that Tyler got fired." I was so shocked I couldn't even respond. I understand why Alex might be pleased, but my subordinates being happy about my departure. But on reflection, maybe it's understandable. They must see it as retribution for making them take on unreasonable work at Alex's command. "I'm truly sorry for all the hardship I've caused," I said, deeply remorseful. As I was speaking, Alex approached. Does he still have more to say? Bracing myself, he began to speak unexpectedly. "Don't leave yet. You're coming with me to meet with a client." "What?" "We're going to apologize for this mess. You're the main cause of this mess, after all." Having my last task be an apology felt unsettling, but there was no choice. According to Alex, the client's CEO, Mr. Johnson, wanted to speak with me. Wondering what he wanted to discuss, I got into the car Alex was driving.
Useless old man, make sure you apologize sincerely.
Alex made irritating remarks as he drove, and I stared out the window in discomfort. After about an hour's drive, we arrived at the client's office and headed to the CEO's office. Though I was not convinced, it was a fact that we had missed the deadline. Reluctantly, I began to apologize. But the CEO of the large company, Mr. Johnson, hurriedly stopped me. "Hey, there's no need for that." He stopped me, but Alex seemed unsatisfied. He clicked his tongue in a volume just on the edge of audibility. "Mr. Johnson, please don't coddle him," Alex said. "What do you mean?"
The responsibility for this mess lies entirely with this man, Tyler.
"Is that true?" "Yes, it is. Come on, useless old man, apologize." Alex seemed almost delighted, as if there was nothing more enjoyable in the world. "By the way, I've already fired him, so you can rest assured." "Is that so? It's good that Tyler got fired." "Right. The company only gets worse with him around. Now, we can scout him to our company without any reservations." "Wait, what?" At Mr. Johnson's comment, Alex froze in an instant. "Scout him? This old man who's close to retirement." "Alex, you're young, so you might not know this. Let me explain." "What are you talking about?" I studied from the ground up to become a CEO, and during my early days, Tyler was a great help to me. I remembered those times fondly. We used to go out for drinks quite often, though it's been less frequent these days. Moreover, regarding this issue, I'm not upset. What? But we missed the deadline. I knew the terms you proposed were unrealistic. I've been monitoring the progress with that understanding. That's... Actually, I'm impressed by how well you managed under these constraints, Mr. Johnson said, showing me a smile. It turned out, I was called in not just to be scouted, but also to be thanked. Surrounded by these unexpected developments, I returned home feeling bewildered. While having dinner with Emily, I shared today's events. Tomorrow, I think I'll go back to the company I was fired from to say goodbye properly. Didn't you already do that? It was rushed because I was called to the client's office. I want to say farewell properly. Then, as your wife, I'd like to come too. Why? That's the workplace where you've spent many years. I really want to go. I could see something like determination in Emily's eyes. It was rare for her to insist so strongly, given her usually reserved nature. All right, if you say so. Thank you. I appreciate it. The next day, I bought some small gifts at the department store before heading to the company. I handed out these gifts to each of my subordinates while saying my goodbyes. Unexpectedly, most of them were teary-eyed. They had said it was good that I was fired, yet here they were, crying. Curious, I couldn't help but ask what this was all about. Then, I heard an unexpected reason from one of my subordinates. It turns out they had been worried about me all along. They were distressed seeing me being manipulated by Alex, unable to become the factory manager, and just being used for his own ends. They believed that I could succeed in any company. Despite being fired, they thought it was for the best that I had left. They were actually happy to see me freed from an unfair and unreasonable environment. Feeling relieved that they hadn't hated me, Emily and I shared a moment of reassurance. After finishing my farewells to the team, Emily and I headed to see the factory manager, Alex. Alex, this is my wife, Emily. Alex, who had been fiddling with his phone, glanced up at Emily's face. At that moment, his face went pale. It's been a while, Alex, since that arranged meeting, right? What? Oh, you're his wife. Alex stammered, unable to hide his disturbance. I had learned yesterday that Emily knew Alex. In fact, Emily is the daughter of a big company's CEO. There's quite an age gap between us. Before we married, Emily had been set up in a matchmaking meeting with the son of a subcontractor company's president. It was Alex. However, Alex has always been prideful and arrogant. His overbearing attitude and his derogatory remarks about Emily's appearance repeatedly led, quite naturally, to the cancellation of their arranged marriage. Alex had been severely scolded by his father, but his attitude never improved. He would never have imagined that Emily would marry me. If it became known that he had been harassing the husband of a major company CEO's daughter, Alex's position would become precarious. I apologize for all the disrespect shown to your husband. Alex apologized profusely. But such actions had no impact. I overlooked your rude behavior during our meeting, but I cannot overlook the hurt you've caused to someone important to me. Please, forgive me. I will report this to my father. No. Anything but that. I'll do anything. Alex tried to plead, but it was in vain. Emily, furious, left the scene immediately. It was the first time I had seen my wife so angry. I was surprised, but even more so, I was pleased. Because her anger stemmed from someone hurting her husband. Upon returning home, Emily immediately reported everything to her father, CEO, Mr. Harrison. All of Alex's past behaviors came to light. The information spread, eventually reaching Alex's father and my former boss, President, Mr. Parker. Alex was not only severely scolded but also fired. Having previously lived comfortably under his father's patronage, he now lost that, too. Without a job, he couldn't afford his rent or living expenses and was kicked out of his apartment. Despite trying to find a new job, his arrogant nature remained unchanged, leading to repeated rejections at interviews. Having lost both his job and his place to live, he apparently ended up living on the streets. The life of a former CEO's son turned street dweller is the ultimate humiliation, and he reportedly sleeps every night with tears of frustration. Why must I, a graduate of a top university, end up like this? It's a fitting end for someone who treated people like tools and handled them carelessly. Meanwhile, I started working at a company that had scouted me from my previous dealings. Here, unlike my former company, a college degree is not necessary for advancement. Using my past experience, I quickly rose to become a factory manager. I was entrusted with one of the major company's factories, and I successfully earned trust at my new workplace. Every day is enjoyable, and even my wife can see how happy I am. I'm really glad to see you so happy, Emily said with a genuinely joyful smile. Seeing her smile, I vowed to work even harder.